Well, I finally found one, and it's pretty rough. Today's restoration project is an American Flyer Circus locomotive number 353, and it has seen some better days. This tender is actually complete. I have the rest of it off the table here. And the circus locomotive is faded, dirty, dusty, and quite chipped. There's a lot of paint scratches all over it, as well as this big white splotch, which either is white paint or bird poop. The underside is very, very dusty and dirty. The tender shell is quite rusted and will need to be disassembled and completely repainted. I picked up some red paint and decided to do a little bit of testing to see how it would look. You can see a much better example of the locomotive here, where I did some test spotches of paint. Here, this is some bright red called apple red, and up here is a darker spot of paint, which you can see is called gloss banner red. So once this locomotive is sandblasted, I'm going to be painting it in the gloss banner red. The paint removal process is complete, and you can see the engine and tender pieces are all prepped and ready to be painted. When all the paint's removed, you can really see how much detail is in these castings. They're actually quite nice, but with heavy coats of paint and lots of chipping and wear, the details kind of fade into the background. You can even see the Baltimore and Ohio logo that's on the front of this. Pretty neat. You can definitely see how rusty this was. The metal was very pitted all throughout here. I am continuing progress on a project I started several months ago, and that is my American Flyer 353 circus engine. The locomotive shell and tender have been painted. I acquired this chassis and motor from the same place that the shell came from. It was probably stored in a damp environment. Everything was coated in a layer of rust. The armature actually isn't too terribly worn out, but all the plates in the armature core were all rusted. This is the field assembly, and you can see the remnants of the rust that was all over it. The entire thing had surface rust on it, and I soaked it overnight in my de-rusting liquid. It leaves a little bit of a dark stain, but it's harmless. But yeah, this was completely rusted before, so I don't think it turned out too bad. I don't think I'm going to be able to reuse this anyways, because as you can see, there's only one wire coming off of the field. And unfortunately, the wire that's still on here is on the top. The other wire broke off down here, and I'll have to see if I can, yeah, you can't really see it, but down here is where the other end of the wire is. It broke off right here. Likely I'd have to rewind this entire field, and I'm not going to do that. I have this other one that's in much nicer shape, and it has a nice red color to it that matches the engine really cool. This is off of a late model Atlantic, so we'll just use that for the time being. Maybe eventually I'll fix that field when I have time. The reverse mechanism was also heavily rusted, and both of the finger plates were disintegrated when they took them off. They just fell apart because they were so damp, unfortunately, because the fingers weren't in bad shape. I would have reused them otherwise. Actually, I had to take a file and a stone wheel on my Dremel, this here, and go after the surface rust, because the wire wheel wasn't taking it off. Once I got it down to a bare metal surface, I was actually able to use this gun blue liquid. This is Oxbow blue. It's more blue than the original blackened color is, but once it's inside the shell, you're not going to see it. It does protect the metal from rusting further, at least the areas I was able to clean. I got the drum all cleaned up as usual, and this seems to be operating again correctly. So new fingers from port lines, bring that right back to life. The other problem that I had with this is that the chassis frame cracked up here, and I don't know why. Maybe I dropped it, or just had a weak spot right here. Anyways, I JB welded that back together, and it's going to cure overnight. All right, so the next thing that needs to be done before I final assemble everything is I need to apply the decals. These are dry transfer decals to the locomotive, and hopefully that will go smoothly without any difficulties. All right, well, the circus engine is finally done. It's been sitting on my shelf for a very long time. I think I started this project over a year ago, and I finally have it complete. So this was built out of complete scrap. The engine was just the shell, very disgusting. The paint was ruined, and the tender was very rusted, and was only worth stripping down and repainting, which I did. I rebuilt a chassis that I had from a junk box as well, and that I actually completely put new axle bushings in all 3 sets of wheels because the other ones were completely junk, and it doesn't run really fast, but it runs really smooth. I also had to replace some of the linkage. The main drive rods are replaced; those are brand new. Rebuilt the reverser inside and rewired. As you'll see running around, I even used red flexi wire going from the tender to the engine. Actually, the decaling was the worst part of this because the original set of decals I got, I had no idea what I was doing, and they disintegrated when I tried installing them. So I actually bought the set of decals twice, and once I figured out how to do it correctly, these went on pretty good, but the paint underneath is still kind of rough. So it is what it is, but it looks good. I also replaced the front pilot truck with a brand new one because that was completely gone. Let's see. The only other thing is that the cars and engine have all knuckle couplers now. The cars came that way when I picked them up, and I just installed a matching coupler on the engine so that it would pull them around. I may someday reset the entire set to link couplers the way it came from the factory. I do have a headlight lens, it's just not installed. I did not paint the white rings or yellow rings on the nose of the locomotive. I just didn't want to bother with that detail. For what I'm doing, I don't really care. All right, let's run the American Flyer Circus train.